Hey, Chandra.
Hey G, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I cannot complain. I cannot complain. Happy and excited to be here as always.
Always. You know why I'm excited? Because there's a dynamic duo in the house to join us.
So, two dynamic duos, is that what we're talking about tonight?
That's right. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, awesome. Let us bring them on stage, please. Welcome, ladies. Dr. Sheka, welcome. Tammy, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so glad you are with us today. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you, ladies, for having us.
Yes, we're doing great. So excited to be with you guys.
All right.
We
On
have been,
fire.
I know we've been trying to get this planned, and we're so happy that we finally coordinated
Yes,
making it happen. I'm really excited.
We are too.
Absolutely.
definitely glad to be here.
Thank you.
So, why don't we just get started? Ladies, will you please introduce yourself to our audience? Tell us who you are. And, don't tell them all the stuff that you do. We're going to get into that later. Just give them a little something, something, just a little something.
Tammy, you want to start?
I can. Good evening, everybody. I am Tammy Taylor. I am co-founder of Create and Educate LLC, and we are a consulting education firm that tries to lift others in the area of leadership, literacy, many different things that we'll get into as we speak tonight. But I'm also a practicing principal of an elementary school, pre-K through fifth grade. So again, very, very excited to be with you guys tonight.
And I am also an educator. This is my 19th year in education. I started as a teacher. I've been an assistant principal, a principal, currently serving at the district level as the director of secondary interventions. And along with Tammy, I am the co-founder of Create and Educate, where we specialize in solving problems in education.
I love it. Yes, educators helping and supporting other educators, women after our own hearts, right, G?
Absolutely. And there's such a heavy lift because you are so happy saying we help to, solve solutions in education. And so many people will back away from that, right? They'll say, oh, it's too much. I was just reading someone on LinkedIn saying, I'm in my second year and I'm overwhelmed. Just
Mhm.
speak to us a little bit about what has led you to the point of even establishing, create, and educate and the impact you hope to make in education.
Thank you. One of the things Tammy and I had a journey during our principalships. We started the principalship the very same year, and it didn't really start off as a very positive experience. Our accountability model in South Carolina had just changed. So after our first year, we found ourselves in unsatisfactory status. And, what was told to us was basically, you either figure out how to get out of this or, you all are going to be back in some classrooms. So it wasn't supportive, it wasn't positive. However, we turned lemons into lemonade. We, didn't accept what was being told to us as the final, because we're women of faith as well. We are from the communities that we serve in, so we are even more passionate about the people who our communities and our students and children than the people who were making threats to us just because of an agenda. So, we were not concerned about that part. We coined one another as each other's trustmates. We said, we're going to get through this. And that's exactly what we did. And we sought out some other people outside of the district that were able to help us with reading data. And we put some very strategic things in place that allowed us to move our schools. My school went up 2 report card grade levels in 1 year. Tammy's went up 3 report card grade levels in 1 year. And it was all due to the things that we worked out together, and that we learned from some very important mentors to be able to put in place. And so we decided from there, and our one of our mentors said, wow, this is great what you all have done around literacy. I need this at my school. You all should start your own company and start doing this because this is needed. And we were thinking, really? People would pay us to do this. So that's how it started. And our platform, the collaborative, came about. And I'll let you tell that part, Tammy, so I'm not telling all of the story.
You could have gone right on with that story. You were doing so well. But I do want to just add to, before I talk about us with the collaborative, just one footnote, because Sheka summed that up very well. But one of the things that I think also was a pivotal point for us was when you are in that situation and you don't have anywhere else to turn, you look to the grace of God.
Mm-hmm.
And that grace was what got us through to make the decisions that she was talking about, because we would have not known what to do. And God was putting us in the right places at the right time to connect with the right people.
Definitely.
And so we kind of just was shielded through all of that. And she
Mm-hmm.
said we were going back to the classroom. I thought that the message was, you get the school fixed, or you're going on an improvement plan and then you getting out of here. I didn't know they were going to put us in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were preparing, like, no, this is not how this story will end, because
Exactly.
number one, we are bigger than this. And number two, these problems are way deeper than some numbers on a piece of paper. So we knew, that there was ministry and work to be done. And so that's what we set out to do. And as Sheka was saying, once we started, it was just very energizing for us, because we started to just kind of reassess things, because we were in a different space at that point. And so we were reassessing and just kind of looking to, where are we going? What is it that we really want to do? Like, we have a company, and now what are we going to do? And one of those things that Sheka mentioned during that time, she was talking about how Sheka's a very social person. So she's really like on social media. So she knows all about the articles that people are posting. And like you were talking about how people are frustrated, she knows all about people's frustrations. I know about it when she tells me about it. But so we were talking about it one day, and she was saying, she said, this is so sad, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. She said, this is really sad. People don't feel like they have anywhere to go, any place to turn. We have to do something. And it was at that point where we started to kind of talk through that process and realized what we weren't going to do is just add to the conversation of what's wrong, what the woes were at that time. But and we had decided we were not going to blame anybody, because at this point everybody's to blame for something. So instead of blaming one another and having people at odds with each other, the parents were frustrated with the teachers were frustrated with the parents, everybody was getting frustrated with the kids because they didn't want to log on to get their work done. It was just a hot mess. And so we decided, you know what, we can create a space so that we can give voices to these individuals to say, these are some of the current concerns that we're seeing. What can we do about it? So
So,
we
Tammy, hold on one second. Tammy, you got to hold on one second. Because these two are the principal versions of us. Y'all are. That's
I know
the
what you were
word,
thinking.
every single word you said. We created a space
Mm-hmm.
for teachers to
Mm-hmm.
come in the midst of the pandemic to feel that someone was listening, someone was there to offer solutions.
That's what we
Definitely.
are.
I didn't know we was that parallel.
We are very parallel because that was what our message was. We are solution centered. And so, because
Mhm.
we are solution minded, we gave that space to say, hey, let's come together and discuss some of these issues and concerns that we're having, hearing, and seeing. And so we decided because we also have a strong passion, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that later, but literacy is something that we focus on very heavily because, and I won't get into all that because we'll talk about it, but statistically, we know that in order for our community to advance and for us to really eliminate some of the subjugation and in this whole fight for liberation, we're going to have to get kids reading, writing, being able to be productive. And so we take literacy very seriously. And so we took that upon ourselves to offer a story time because again, the platform was for the family, for administrators,
Mhm.
teachers, parents, and we've even had students on there to give voice to some of the concerns that they've had. But just at the end of that space, we wanted to have a featured author because we realized that through a lot of different things that the independent authors that are out there are incredible, but they do not get that opportunity to be on Front Street because people don't know about them and they're not signed with a company that folks know. So sometimes they're very underrated. And so we've been working with independent authors and giving them the opportunity to close us out with a story time in the evening for children.
And if I could just add one thing to what Tammy said, I'm glad you mentioned that you were teachers as well, Georgette. With the threat of being put back in the classroom, now that wouldn't have been a problem for Tammy or myself because we love children, we love teaching. You're always a teacher at heart, but when someone is using that to demean you because what your title is at that point is an administrator and that's where your career path is set, it means something different. But
Absolutely. And I'm sure
teaching
that was
definitely
felt
at the
like a
heart.
thread. Like I'm
Mhm.
sure that, and God does things the way that He does them. Because see, if that had been the message that I heard, I might would have just said, "Okay, I'll help you. I'll get on back to the classroom." I didn't ask to come out of the classroom, but I didn't realize that was what was happening. So,
Mhm.
nonetheless, we felt, and this is the bottom line for me, and I think for Shika too, our kids deserved better.
They
Our
did.
staff deserved
Teachers
better.
too.
And guess
Mhm.
what? We were not going out like that. Like,
Yep.
okay, you can say what you want, you can think what you want, but we are way better than this. My
Mhm.
children are way smarter than what this is saying they are. My teachers teach their hearts out. So this is like, I'm not fretful over it because I know what's happening. And I know that there are some shifts and some things that we are going to have to put into place that are structures that will help us to be better. But this is not the end of this story. You have to just stay tuned, and so they did.
I love that. Stay tuned.
That's exactly right. And, and I just have to go back to this foundation of being solutions oriented, right? Because I mean, she opened and talked about the fact that, right, that, she's got this brand new novice teacher who's like, I don't think I can do this, right? And
Mhm.
we all know it's not just a few teachers, it's not just a few school leaders, it's not just a few paraprofessionals. There are loads of folks who are constantly having this conversation. And
Mhm.
Georgette and I were just talking about this recently. I was like, I can't even watch it on social media anymore. I have to drown that out because
Mhm.
it's too much, it's not helpful, and it's not solutions oriented. What it
Right.
makes me think is that we have to do better, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm thinking, where do you even begin when you are in that space? And thank you for sharing your truth around, that evaluation and where you were.
Mhm.
How do you come from that space, right, where these teachers are, where you were, to really look at it and go, Nah, I'm not going out like that. This is not going to be the end of the story. What advice would you give to fellow educators who are in that space right now and who need to be turned towards solutions, right? Because they deserve it, the profession deserves it, and the children deserve it, because the answer can't be leaving, right? That can't be
Right.
the answers for any of us.
Definitely. I think for me, and Tammy may have a different answer, but for me, I had been at my school for basically the entire. I taught there. I was the assistant principal there, and became the principal there. So for me, that was my school. You know, I went to that school. So for you to come in from somewhere else and you're not from here, and these are your thoughts about my children and my teachers, I was very personally invested in my school and my teachers, and my community. So I wanted to definitely be able to look myself in the mirror to say, hey, I've exhausted everything that I knew how to do to make sure that, this circumstance changed. But I wanted my children to be able to see themselves in the light that they really should have seen themselves, because what I had to start doing in order to change our culture, I would do town hall meetings. I would have conversations with them, because when you're making changes at a school, it can't be you making changes. Everyone has to be involved in that process. So I had to talk to the teachers, I had to talk to the children, I had to talk to the parents. And the one thing that we had to make sure of was, I would say, CMS, I see you, what do you see? And I would have to describe, because I see in you the lawyers, the doctors, the nurses, everything that you all aspire to be. I see it. I had to speak life into my children, because when you have an unsatisfactory rating, that's what I hate about our accountability system. Labels matter, messaging matters. When you put this on a school, on children, on teachers, that's demeaning. It should be more of a growth model. If they actually ask some educators how this should go, they might have some real answers. But it should be more of growth labels versus things that are demeaning to schools and to educators and to parents and to children. So I had to let them know, we are not this. We are way better than this, and we're going to do better than this, and this is how we're going to do it. I had willing people who wanted to do things. The children wanted to learn. That's the first thing people always say, oh, the children don't want to learn. They want to learn. You just got to put it in a format where they actually want to hear you, and they don't want to hear you talk all day. We've got to do things that are engaging. So, we had to put in some work, cultural relevancy work, literacy work, and culture work was the main things that I would say helped to shift in our knowledge around reading data, and being able to make sure that transcended all the way down to the student, where they understood what benchmarks and goals they were trying to meet, and extend that growth mindset into every child. I don't care where you are. All I want you to do is grow. If you're growing, and we grow 1.5 years every year, by the time you get to the 8th grade, I'm gonna have you ready to go on over to that high school. So that was the mindset.
Yes, and she did an incredible job with that. Now, our stories are a little different because I am not from the community that I serve in. I'm in the county, but I didn't grow up in that community. I grew up in the community where she was serving. Um, well, I really grew up outside that community, but I went to the schools there. But the urgency was the same. And I don't really know how to say this other than to say, when we got those, we knew now, and don't get me wrong, we saw what was coming, because when you are a person who studies your data, then I mean, we're not completely blindsided by the fact that this isn't looking promising, because there have been multiple years of decrease in scores. So you know that with the new model that she described, this could go south, and it won't be good. I was not expecting it to go as badly as it did, but that being said, I took that very personally. I owned it as a principal. I didn't say, this is my first year here. This isn't me. This is somebody else, and these are the children are poor, and I didn't do any of that. I wore that big scarlet letter sitting right up here so that my kids didn't have to, so that my teachers didn't have to. So whenever somebody said something, I only talked about how amazing the kids are down there. I only talked about how awesome my staff is, because that truly is how I felt. And I convinced myself, and as Sheka said before, when we first got started with the conversation, we coined each other as each other's trust mates, so I could be open and honest with her to say, this is not a good feeling at all. And I have to embrace my kids and my staff, or I don't need to be here. Like, if I can't be the principal that thinks that these are the best kids and the best teachers in this world, then I need to go somewhere else, or somebody else needs to come who can be that advocate, be that person who is going to lift them up when you feel like you're as downtrodden as you can be. And you are, because as Sheka said, when you get a rating of unsatisfactory, it's really emasculating, because you're just kind of like, all this hard work that I'm doing, and nothing comes out of this except we're rated unsatisfactorily. And I, because of a glitch in technology, was actually at the bottom 5% of that category that I fell into, which put me in a whole level under the rest of the schools in improvement. Just a very horrific situation. So we had a choice. Like, are you going to wallow in this and whine and complain that this isn't your thing? Like, I mean, I could have like walked around like that was not my problem, because I hadn't been there. But that was going to help no one. What we did is took a step back, kind of assessed the situation, because there were some things that needed to be tweaked and some things that were already being worked on that we gave special attention to as we were trying to keep teachers motivated, keep teachers encouraged, coach teachers who did need to be there, because there were some things that needed to happen. Coach teachers who didn't need to be there to be able to go to the places where they matched and match them much better. So you have a lot of dynamics happening all simultaneously. And what I was thinking when Sheka was talking was, it was nothing again but grace that allowed us to be able to manage all that, because a lot's going on. Keep each other encouraged, because that's not a good feeling. That's a very heavy burden. And some days I came home, and when people talk about the weight of the world on your shoulders, I came home so weighted. And I have, between getting there and back, I have an hour to drive every single day. And like now I go and it's just mind clearing, and I can just come and I go and I'm free, and I come and I'm free. But I was so weighted down because I bore the responsibility for making that situation better on my shoulders. And I took it so personally, because I felt like, just like Sheka, the kids deserved a better shot than that. They deserved to be recognized for who they were, as well as that staff. And when I was able to support them through that low point, I think that developed, because Sheka already had the trust and confidence
Mhm.
of her staff. I'm in a new space. These people don't know me. They don't know how I'm going to ride through this. Like, am I going to disown the school? Like, what am I going to do? So they're looking to me to see, what kind of leadership is she going to provide? Is she going to weather this storm with us, or is she about to bounce out of here? I had to show them that I'm just as invested in getting this right as you are. I had a coaching staff, my leadership team. We dug in, started to look at what had to happen, mapped it out, and the direction that we went. And as Sheka said, just kind of wanted to close the mouth of the naysayer who thought, well, this is where they are and this is where they're going to stay, because you really can't come from this. You don't bounce back from this kind of thing.
You know, this is a perfect example of why we call this show Reflections of the Heart, because we heard the heart of two principals coming from two different places, in the sense of one having had a rapport relationship, established credibility and trust, the other not, but really in the very same situation. And so while we've always been here for the teachers, we've always said, give those administrators some grace, because you have no idea what they're dealing with. And because Chandra and I both were more than classroom teachers, we were able to kind of work in different capacities. We knew that. But many classroom teachers never really even get to see those types of realities that school administrators, district administrators face. So thank you for just your honesty in that. I think I want to make sure that in the answer to Chandra's question, we realize that what you both talked about from the beginning is partnership.
Yep.
And really, you called each other truth partners, which I think is so precious. Just awesome. But we need truth partners sometimes, even when we don't want to admit it. And so I'm hoping that people hear from you that in this dire situation, you really, bonded together in this struggle as truth partners. But sometimes we need to solicit truth partners when we get those observations that don't look the way we want them to look, or we're surprised by them, or we're not meeting satisfactory in our own regard, or we're dealing with constant challenges with students and parents and families. So the idea of a truth partner doesn't have to be a mutual thing. It could be something that you solicit, which is another way of saying a mentor. I need a mentor. I need an accountability partner. I just wanted to make sure the listeners, as we're talking solutions, I feel like Chandra and I are truth partners, right? Tammy
And
are truth partners, but there
we
are
call it, I'm sorry, Georgia, we call it trust mates.
trust mate.
Yeah, yeah.
Lord, thank you for fixing me.
I
Trust
like
mate.
And we encourage everybody to have one, because and the thing is, and this is what I love about the commentary, Georgette, it isn't just about, like, we were there to keep each other encouraged, because I was not going to, I have my own woes and struggles at my school, but you know what? I'm working as hard as I can to help her too. And likewise, because we're not going to go out like this. Like we're going up, and we're going up together.
That's right.
So that's a great space to have a trust mate. But I encourage everybody to get a trust mate, because even at the pinnacle of what's happening in your life, in your school, or whatever, you still need someone who will tell you the truth.
That's right.
And will tell you the truth no matter how offensive that truth might be at the moment. You have to be open to that level of feedback, because we are that person for one another. And that realness and that genuine trust that you can build with the person who will see you through whatever it is you're going through personally, but especially professionally today is super important.
So I feel like this is a good transition to talk about your new book, because you're talking about, and I'm gonna get that wrong too, so y'all get your writing ready for me. but I do know you're talking about kind of working your way through the journey, up to the top together. So I got the point of it.
Yes.
Help our audience get a sense of, your book, and why they should consider it with their staff or their journey.
Well, the book we wrote is called "It Doesn't Have to Be Lonely at the Top." I think what the education system does in the way that it ranks us with the accountability rating model it really pits us against one another when you're in administration, because it's always a competitive thing. Are you doing better than this school? You really don't want to share because you want your school to shine over that school, and really that's not what it should be about. So we're intentional about that title. It doesn't have to be lonely at the top, because you always hear people in the principalship talk about, oh, it's such a lonely place. Well, it doesn't have to be. If you're sitting there in your seat and that's where you're staying because you want to be there, that's how your journey is going to be. But if you seek out that trust mate like we did with one another, and you collaborate, because we push collaboration in education, but when you're in certain seats, it's really looked at differently. So in administration, a lot of times, the talk is about collaboration, but that's not really what the hidden rules are. So we really wanted to make sure that that story was told. But also when we were in those seats of trying to figure out, like, well, what do we do about culture, and how do you actually make sure that students grow? We wanted to create a roadmap for principals, because that doesn't exist. A lot of times, people are given the keys and, hey, you've been in this town all this time, you fix the school, the people, and you connect and you do all of this, and you're just expected to do things, but with no real support. You can ask questions, and then you're called down about it later. Oh, well, you didn't know this. Well, I'm not supposed to know everything, am I? I can ask some questions. So we wanted to give principals a roadmap to making sure they could really institute sound things that could really improve schools. And a lot of it is based in the work of Ron Edmonds, where I did a lot of my dissertation work behind the philosophy of it. But our 5 super strengths for real resilient schools is respect, excellence, accountability, literacy, and leadership. And under each one of those areas, we really help principals map out, how do you build that culture within your school to make sure that you can invoke real and true change to make sure that you are achieving.
And I'll just add, because Sheka gave a great overview what the book's about, and it really truly is our journey. It's our journey through that story, with details, of course, about how that experience felt and some of the other things that were happening during that time. It was a very traumatic experience, and because of that, as she said, we wanted to share that story, but not leave it at just sharing this horrible story. And even though it turned out okay, because we saw growth and we saw improvement, we also wanted to, because we're solutions oriented, provide, as she said, some frameworks for assisting other people who find themselves maybe not where we were exactly, but somewhere along that continuum of great, not so great, and maybe allowing that to help them to address whatever issues they might be experiencing in their particular setting.
So I remember you all talking about, you got these unsatisfactory ratings and you sought advisement. Was that something that you sought independently, or as part of your meeting with the superintendent or those leaders at central office, they said, we want to offer you these solutions? How did you, okay, Sheik, I see your face. What, how, what led you in the path that you did? And talk, kind of respond to that.
So it was definitely outside help that we sought, because there was no help available to us in the district beyond one another. One of the people that I ended up seeing Facebook Live posts was Principal Sean Hurt, and he is known as the data guru. and he definitely enlightened us both about data and how to connect the teachers to it as well as the students. And once that light bulb went off, the things really started to be able to be put together. And we told him exactly where we were, and he was just more than happy to help. Talk to us for 2 hours. We had not paid him one dime. Send me this, send me that. Okay, this is what this means. And I had been to several trainings on reading data, but when you hear it from someone who is actually in a principalship or in the same position as you, sometimes that the way they look at it is different and more relevant to you. So it made a whole lot more sense. So definitely outside help. And Dr. Akua, I'll let Tammy talk about our connection and mentorship with him.
Yes, and just to add a footnote to what Sheka was saying about Principal Hurd, because he was willing to do whatever. This was the other thing that struck me about Principal Hurd and Dr. Akua, who I will just kind of give you guys the overview of how we got connected with him, because again, we're being put in the right places at the right times. So
Mm-hmm.
this is just all falling into place for us. But this was the thing that I think struck me about Principal Hurd. Even though he hadn't received any money, I didn't even have any money at that time to be able to pay him. He just send me what you have, and I'm gonna take a look at it. When I looked at Miss Houston's, and I'll get back with you. And sure enough, he talked to us for hours. But the thing that struck me the most and will always resonate with me, and I try to be that person for other people, was when we were telling him what our dilemma was and what the situation was. And like we were literally being told, there's this is your reality. You are not going to get out of this. You're where you are. This is where you're going to be. He was not a bit concerned about it, didn't think that that was we're completely devastated and mortified. He was like, oh, no, 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 it'll be fine. We got this. We got it. Yeah, all y'all got to do is follow this roadmap that I'm giving you, and this is going to work out just fine. So we're looking at each other thinking, look, here we got us a cheerleader who does not even know us. Like, this guy don't even know who we are.
And isn't that
So
disappointing that you had to seek this cheerleader out from a complete stranger?
he
Yes,
just
from
fell
a
right
whole
into
nother
that.
state.
Yes, not
Mhm.
even in our state. But
Mm-hmm.
I say that to say, because Dr. Chika Akua is also was that way for us, and was seeing what we thought was the plight we were facing. And he was exactly the same way, like, no, 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 y'all got this. I know that this is gonna be behind you soon. Like, y'all just keep doing what you do. You're doing good things. Just keep doing what you do. Just very encouraging, very
Mhm.
motivating. So we were in the presence of people like that, who are saying, go for it, girls. Y'all got it. Don't worry about this. Y'all got this. Keep going. So you know what? We didn't have any more sense than to believe that we had it, and we just went right on doing it, and just kept on doing it, and keep on doing it. That's exactly what where how we got there. But Sheka is modest about the things that she did to really restructure how things were going at her school. But she did a lot of groundwork, like underground, and it was very subtle in the way she was rolling it out, but it was impactful because the profoundness of where she was going with it really, I think, is what created that buy-in from the teachers, and everybody was kind of just on board. And I say everybody, and that's kind of loosely, because she lost staff just like I did. But Dr. Akua is expert all things African culture. And when he speaks, it's just like you are hearing from someone who is in ancient Kemet. You're listening to him talk about the um, folks and the inventions that were there, and we're looking at just Imhotep, and you're learning about all of these people, and he is a firm believer that we need to make sure that our students and our communities, our staff, everybody realizes that the history of Black people does not begin when they were enslaved and brought to this country. That's not the beginning of our history, but history is far beyond that and started much farther back than that. And because of that, he's able to show how those folks were scientists and some of the most brilliant engineers, because you see all of these things, and he has images to match. So we were able to meet him at a conference that we attended, and Sheka had the wherewithal to invite him to be a consultant at her school. So he started to come in and work at the school, and he has tons of materials that are culturally relevant and expose students to have that representation that is missing many times within the curriculum and the literature that we have and they have access to. So as she said, he served as a very strong mentor and support system to us as well. So the bottom line is, it just goes right back to what she was saying. The way that we were able to do what we needed to get done was by leaning on each other, yes, but also paying attention to who we have been put in the presence of and seeing how those things could help us connect better with what was going on at our school and in the district.
And if I could just add this one footnote, because Tammy talked about how basically all of this was due to grace, and it truly was. However, the enemy also stays busy. And when I was trying to get Dr. Akua to come to the district, it was rescheduled 3 times. And somebody said, well, there must be something about him, we may not need to have him come. And so, sometimes those messages of doubt are placed in your mind. But when are given certain feelings and discernment about certain things as a leader, go with what you've been provided.
Absolutely.
When you're praying and asking for that direction. And so I still had him to come, and I think that was a really big shift when we got that cultural relevancy, pedagogy for the teachers, and the empowerment for the students really caused a big shift in our culture.
I think so too. And I think that, as Sheka said, that intuition and the discernment that you have about people, because these two gentlemen that we were talking about are not the only people who God connected us with. There's a entire network of folks who have supported us and helped us in some capacity or another. But these two fellas are a part of that story because they literally were saying and pushing, keep it moving. You can do this. You can do this. And they do what they didn't at that time, not know us.
No.
You two are so unbelievably inspirational and uplifting. And we talk so much about elevating the profession, and that is exactly what you're doing. And I thank you tremendously for it. Because I know so many in our profession right now are feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling frustrated, all the things that COVID exhausted, right? That these past 2.5, that feels more like 10 years, have brought on. But what I've heard from you, amazing nuggets, right? Are one, mindset is huge. Right? You have to have the right mindset. You have to be in the right mindset. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to believe that about the people around you, right? You're telling folks to reach out to mentors, to accountability partners, to resources, ask for help. You are not alone in this space at all, right? And so please share with our audience right now in this, and I'm not going to say post-COVID. Folks talk about post-COVID. We're not done yet, right? We're
Exactly.
still in the midst of it. And I like to think about the possibilities for education, given, where we were, where we are, and what could be. Talk to us about your work and how your work is elevating and changing the face of education, because I know and I believe deeply in my heart, if folks can be in places where they are connected with people and with resources that work and move forward, we can move this profession
Oh, yeah.
beyond our wildest dreams. So
Hmm.
Definitely.
talk to us about that.
Well, it was grace and God that brought us out of that unsatisfactory situation, along with the hard work of our staff and the belief of them in our vision, and basically, the children and the parents buying in and everybody just doing the work. And with our company, I think we have definitely been graced with being able to collaborate with so many people, to where we can do things that are uplifting to people, because right now that's what people need. They need inspiration. They need to know that this is not going to be the end all. We've got to have some positivity out there for the children. So one of the things that we do in order to pay it forward, just like Principal Hurt and Dr. Akua spoken to us on Saturdays, every Saturday at 10:30. We pay it forward with our free PD. And one of our colleagues that we met through Principal Kafele is Josh Tovar. He's a principal out in Texas. He's named us the Fantastic Four. So we offer free PD for educators and really teachers, principals, even parents log on to receive the information. And we try to put it in a messaging where it's something for everyone. But we mostly, right now, our series is on literacy, because that's an area where a lot of people are needing a lot of help. So that is called the Fantastic Four. Principal Hurt comes on at 10. We are on Create and Educate at 10:30, followed by Principal Kafele at 10:55. And then on Sundays, Josh Tovar and his group out of his colleagues are out of Massachusetts. He's out of Texas. They come on Sunday at 7. So it's a blessing to be a part of that collaboration and that professional learning network, especially with someone who is well known as Principal Kafele. And we recently did a tribute to him, all of us, the Fantastic Four, or the three of us did the tribute to Principal Kafele, because he is a nationally known speaker and we're not in that space yet. But he allows us to, be a part of his PLN that he started, and allows us to offer and contribute. So we're thankful and grateful for that. So people can tune into that on Saturdays at 10:30. But with our book, we also offer professional development around literacy and leadership. We really enjoy working with principals because, again, we know how a lot of times that support is not there. And sometimes it's not there because people don't know themselves. The people who are expecting you to do things never worked in a challenging school in their life. They never turned around a school. They don't know how to teach children how to read. They don't know. So they deflect and, oh yeah, you should know this because I sure don't know how to tell you, but they're not going to tell you that. So, we want to make sure that we're helping people, because we don't ever want people to feel like we felt in our positions. When you are in a position where you're leading a school, you're leading children, and everybody's looking to you for the answers, you don't want to have, like Tammy talked about, the weight of the world on your shoulders, and also people coming down on you and you just feeling like you're defeated. And a lot of times in the principalship, principals don't come in and say, Lord, y'all, let me tell you what happened at the district today, what they said today. We shield teachers a lot of times from all of this negativity that is happening. And this doesn't happen, everywhere. In some districts, they are supportive. And we're thankful now for our current superintendent because he is very supportive and he has built a great deal of support in our district now, as far as for our leaders and our principals. So we always shout out Dr. Sutton, very supportive superintendent, and those types of superintendents exist, but the other ones exist too. So where there is not support, we like to be that support because we needed it. We needed the roadmap. We needed the support. So that's where we like to help people. We're passionate about literacy. Tammy's background is early childhood, so she's very knowledgeable about that literacy. And that was the area where we were lacking at the secondary level. Teachers don't learn at the secondary level how to teach children how to read. By the time they get to you, they're expected to already know how to read. So those different strategies that we needed, we were able to learn them from Tammy's school and what they were doing because that's what they specialized in. So the last thing, and I'll let Tammy talk about the what we do with authors, because we were able to get a lot of culturally relevant literature in our classrooms by connecting with independent authors. And I'll let her explain that part of it.
Yes, and I just wanted to echo, though, before I talk about authors, what she could said about Dr. Antoine Sutton, who is our current superintendent. He is more than supportive, and
Mm-hmm.
you feel, and I like Sheka believe that great superintendents exist, and I think that creates that synergy in those districts so that you can figure things out in a way that instead of competing with one another, you can collaborate together and you can look at things holistically and in that attempt be able to move the entire district forward. And he's a very not just supportive professionally, but just whatever. He's that person who tries to support you with whatever is happening and really does promote autonomy within the school so that you can do what matters most and is going to be most impactful for your staff. So we would be remiss without saying thank you to a superintendent who does provide you that kind of support and guidance. So I'm very appreciative of him. The other thing that she could reference that we are very happy about is our work with independent authors. And when we were first learning about this entire honestly, it's really like a village of independent authors out there that some of them have become cohorts together, and so they know each other and work together. But when you're not exposed to those authors, you don't even know that exists. And we learned about them and met many of them. We did a 12 days of Christmas, Christmas before last, and we had some phenomenal authors who have really amazing materials that are representative of varying cultures. And we were so excited about that. And those authors were saying, like, hey, you guys are, as you had said, Chandra, very inspirational. We would love to work with y'all to see, like, help us get our books into schools. Like, how do we connect with schools? And so we do provide that as a service as well to help them with figuring out how to connect and get your work um, acknowledged and into schools and classrooms. We've also done some featured things with events that are centered around those books, and they are available to schools to be able to use because they actually highlight what's going on in those books. But the one thing that I wanted to add, and I think she could probably have something else that she would close out with the authors, but I was thinking about this when she was talking about the book and our PD and all that. The thing that I am so hopeful about, and Chandra, you asked, what can we do next? What can we, what can happen? I think keeping it real, will help solve a lot of the problems that we face. And that is the reason that we have our real framework. And that real framework helps you to keep it real in many different ways. And Shika talked about the leadership aspect of it, but there's a whole culture piece that goes with it. And being able to keep things real, because that again is important. If you are not real with yourself, and you're delusional about what's happening, you're delusional about the leadership that you're providing or not providing,
Mm.
then you're not able to get better. And we're not those people. So we're trying to, again, promote that with people and keep lifting, because that's the whole point of this. We want this to help people because we didn't have access to anything that could help us at that time in the way that we needed it.
Did she say keep it real, G? I think she said keep it real.
Here's another one. We real talk, real time
For
educators
real.
forum. I don't know if y'all realize that.
For real. All about keeping it real all the time. Just
Yeah.
educators supporting educators. But I have to ask because it popped into my head and I know other people are thinking. So why literacy, right? As an entry point, and not literacy and math and science, right? Or math, science, and tech, right?
Mhm.
I'm sure folks are curious about that.
So, and I'll start. She give you
Go ahead, Tammy.
can just pick that up because
Mhm.
she does a lot better with the statistics part of that. She keeps that like in her head. I read it when I get ready to do that. I'll read it to you guys. She knows, but the main thing is the main thing, and that's a part of being real. Like when you keep the main thing, then it's easy to transition into these other areas. And if you can unlock literacy for a child of whatever age, if you can unlock that door to literacy so that he or she is able to get a true foundation for being able to read, to write, to speak, learning how to listen for things, you know what happens? All of those other subjects that you mentioned fall in line
Mhm.
because when you can read and write, guess what you can do? You can learn how to be able to be successful in social studies. You can learn how to be successful in science. Now, I am a math person, so I don't slight math. We just don't include it in the acronym for real because it does not fit there. But we promote numeracy just like we do literacy.
Mhm.
And when if anybody needed PD on numeracy, we could provide that as well. It's just not a part of that real framework. Now, when we're doing PD, we don't skim on any of the content areas because we know that all of that is what comprehensively speaks to being a student. And we don't even stop there. I know you didn't mention this, but when we look at children, we look at the total child. So we're also very heavily emphasizing social and emotional learning. We have a book series for children that we've written that really emphasizes having the opportunity to have those kids that we are going to have access to be able to connect with those social emotional topics that will help them to be better people, to learn how to interact with one another and to accept differences for what they are, and honestly to really begin to know who you are so that you can be proud of the heritage that you have. One of the things that I am using in my dissertation is my theoretical framework is Africana womanism. And a part of Africana womanism is self-naming and self-defining. The series is a really good opening for helping kids to be able to self-name and to define themselves because we want children to understand you have to tell people what you want to be called because you don't have the answer to anything that you're called that doesn't match what you want. So we want them to develop those strengths and those inner strengths that allow them to appreciate who they are and to help others to be able to appreciate them.
And I'll just add that literacy is definitely that piece that's needed to equity. When we are talking about equity and achieve so-called achievement gaps, um, literacy is the key to a lot of that. And the reason a lot of times our children are not connecting to text and to literature is because they don't see themselves in the information, or they're hearing things that are not empowering. They are hearing things that are not encouraging them. They are hearing things that is not adding to that self-awareness the way it needs to and the way it connects to other children. So literacy, we definitely think is a big major part of that. And our work with independent authors helps to be able to connect to that equity part of it. And we don't just work with children's book authors, but we have partnerships too. This is, you talked about math. EduMonitor is one of our partners. So we have access to resources for math for that. This is a Black owned company. Higgs Phonics is another one of our partners with Black owned company. And a lot of times when things are created from that mindset of where it has cultural relevancy built into it, it kind of combats a lot of the things that some other programs may not necessarily be able to combat. So we have connected with authors who have written, and these a lot of times are African American authors, books on 504 information, special education information. And so we provide those resources to every school and every leader that we're working with, because we want them to have the best at their hands and at their resources.
And Sheka didn't go into all that she normally goes into, but there is an entire set of data that talks about why literacy is so important, because when children are illiterate or adult, they turn into illiterate adults. And when adults are illiterate, that adds to poor health care,
Mm-hmm.
poor
Employment.
They can't get employed, but they also are incarcerated at higher levels. It's
Mm-hmm.
just so many different things that are, and again, we could provide you guys with the numbers that match those things, but it's just so many things that happen when you view those standards on what happens in communities where there's lots of illiteracy. And they can't pull themselves out of sometimes abject poverty, and that's, you know, something again that we, if we can do something about it, we definitely want to.
I mean, they'll have to get that when they contract you guys to come and work. That's when they'll get the stats. What y'all think about that?
Definitely.
We know that time is drawing nigh. We could sit here and talk with you all for hours. As a matter of fact, when we, close the stream, don't leave now, because we'll probably need to talk another 5 minutes a minimum. But please, if people want to reach you, where can they do that?
The best place to reach us is on our website, www.createeducate.solutions. And I've placed it in the chat if you're able to put it in the comments. From there, you can connect to all of our social media handles where we do our live streaming with the Saturday PDs at 10:30. And then the collaborative is every first Tuesday of each month. We just had a really riveting episode this past Tuesday where we spoke with two colleagues out of California. I'm not moved by white tears. It was a great conversation about microaggressions and African American experiences in the school system and what's causing a lot of African Americans to leave. So we wanted to bring light to that and address that. And again, we're just all about trying to solve problems and be, a positive voice.
Well, this has been fantastic. I mean, it just it makes me excited every time we get to, I mean, because there's just so many examples in the press about negative um you know fixed mindset kind
Mhm.
of thoughts about where things are or where they've been or where they're going. And everything you guys talked about is about not only solutions, collaboration, partnership, moving forward, uplift, equity. I could go on and on and on. And so we are just so happy that our listeners are getting the opportunity to hear. I've seen your show, and so I know it's rich. I think I caught a story time when I was on, and I was really impressed, especially because it was still in the midst of the pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
so families and others could be on. So I thank you for that. I want to make sure that people who are new to our audience, we are Chandra and Gorgette, and we are the moderators, facilitators, and chief talkers at Real Talk, Real Time Educators Forum on Facebook. And you could also find us on our social media handles. But for the most part, we have two shows. This is one, Reflections from the Heart, where you've just experienced, where we're talking about the change of education, the changing landscape of education. But then we also have the Passion Project, where we feature educators and they share their particular passion projects that are inside and outside of the classroom. So we would be remiss without sharing that. And if you or any of your followers would love to be a part of the Passion Project, we've gotten people from all over the country. Definitely reach out to us. We'd love to feature you there.
And I just want to commend you all for what you're doing, because providing this space for people to share and collaborate and people seeing your example is so important. So I commend you all for being brave enough to put yourselves out there, because it takes a lot to get on social media and, speak your truth and provide a platform for people. Everyone is not comfortable in that space. So I commend you all for what you do. It's awesome.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. We really appreciate that, most definitely. But we are, educators supporting other educators, right? Like if we in the profession don't support one another, don't collaborate, don't uplift, who's going to do it, right? We see a lot of greatness. We got to elevate that. We got
Yeah.
to elevate that. And that's what we're about.
Yeah,
That's the
everybody's trying to tell our story. We need to be the ones telling the story. So, and making sure that the story's told right.
That's right.
So,
The whole
absolute
story.
that's
right.
right.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
So, all of you who have joined us tonight, we hope you enjoyed this episode. You could pick it up again on our YouTube channel. But until next time, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Nice.
Well.
Right.